Alright, I am back with a Destiny 2 video. Well, this is going to be a long one because I have fallen behind on Destiny stuff for a couple of reasons, and now I need to catch up. There has been so much stuff that has happened this week as we head into the final shape that it's almost a little overwhelming, but I do want to touch on all of it. I remain a primarily Destiny-focused channel, even if I've been devoting most of my playtime to Diablo 4 lately. There are 4 things I want to touch on that have happened this week. First is the season finale, which aired on Tuesday. Was playable on Tuesday. There is the giant subclass tuning thing that was up yesterday. There's the Vidoc from today, and then as of 5 minutes ago, there is an exotic thing. That one I haven't even read yet, so that one I'm going to read live. There is another part of the Vidoc tomorrow. There was a TWAB coming later today, but with 2 giant posts, I'm not expecting anything too crazy from the TWAB, and I just want to start recording this, so guess we'll see. I'll just tweet about it if there's something super relevant in there. We'll start with the season finale of Season of the Wish, which I thought was good and bad for different reasons. I didn't like the mission. I just didn't think it was terribly interesting or necessary or felt like the culmination of the rest of that season. Granted, that season sort of was already ending on an anticlimax with Crow just hopping through the portal, and then we're just sitting around waiting for him. This was them saying, oh, well, the Vex are trying to make Blackheart 2, and you must go stop it, which is running through this part of the Star-Crossed mission backwards, and then getting to the end where you do a fight of, the Destiny 2 campaign Black Garden mission again with the 3 statues coming to life. And it's fine. Like, nostalgia hit and all that, and we're coming full circle. It just didn't really... Like, this could have not happened and like nothing would have been different. Like, you don't really want your season finale missions, I don't think, to be like that level of throwaway. So even trying to recreate the original campaign mission, well, on its surface is cool. In practice, I was just sort of not super enthused about it. The good part, obviously, was the cutscene between Crow and Cade, where Crow arrives in the Traveler's Heart and they have a little shootout. Crow with Hawkmoon, and Cade, of course, with Ace. Cade also still has his trip mines, even though he does not appear to have his ghost. They do a little fight. They recreate the famous scene from Forsaken, which they've already recreated once with Zavala. I think this is a little overkill at this point. People were like cinema, and then showing all 3 of the scenes back to back. I'm like, okay, let's calm down a little bit. It was a good cutscene though. Cade seems pretty open to the idea of Uldren being Crow and nice now. I still don't really understand how he knows that Uldren died, since he died before we killed Uldren. So is he just like a ghost watching us? The nature of Cade is what I found the most interesting about this. I wrote an article about this where there is the lore tab on the ship you get from completing the last mission of the season, which the ship's name is Unforeseen Consequences, and the favorite text is, be careful what you wish for. The whole thing is a conversation between Crow and Mara, where she asks him if he has regrets, and he says something along the lines of I wish I hadn't shot Cade, blah blah blah, and at the end you realize that Mara is actually Riven posing as Mara, as she says, "Oh brother mine," which is very much Riven speak, and the implication here is that Crow may have wished Cade to life, with a surprise Ahamkara wish that he didn't technically mean to do. I know that people were reading this months and months ago because the ship was in collections, but I don't know why they do stuff like that, but I do think the timing of this and getting this now right before the final shape is important. I really don't think this is a theory. I don't see how it couldn't be real. It makes so much sense. It's never really, ever since it was said they're bringing Cade back, I'm like, well, this is kind of bullshit. I don't know. I wish they sort of weren't doing this. But we saw a trailer that had a really great Cade narration. It's good to see Nathan Fillion back. But in terms of a story perspective, I'm like, is this where Guardians go and they die? Do they go in the Traveler and hang out there? But this whole time, it seemed like it's only Cade. So why would it be only Cade? one theory I had is, it creates the traveler's insides, whatever it's called. The Pale Heart creates stuff from your own life. So we have like the old versions of the tower, and like today in the Vidoc we saw like the Iron Banner thing, and like so maybe it just created Cade too. But Crow wishing Cade to life specifically, them making Crow be the first one to the portal to see Cade after this wish was made. Cade looking like he's glued together with magic, including his gun. I don't know, man. Seems legit to me. And if this is all limited to a lore card and this is never like touched on in the campaign itself, that would be really shitty. This is a terrible place to like bury one of the most significant pieces of story revelations in the expansion, as 99.9% of players are not going to read this. Best case, they watch a Byte video or watch me doing this or read my article. Like, everyone's going to miss this. So I hope that is kind of made explicit as the story of the final shape goes on. And I think because if he is an Ahamkara Wish, he's probably not going to be a permanent re-addition to the cast. I don't know. He's like a genie maybe, where like you can't maybe stay around long term. He has to like live in the little traveler's heart or something, but we'll see. So that's the story. Good stuff, bad stuff, mostly good stuff. Now, subclass tuning. Totally switching gears off of story now. This is 9,000 words. I'm not going to read all of it again. I did read all of it the first time, but I just want to pull out the stuff that really stood out to me. Obviously, the biggest thing is what they're doing with Stasis. They really, really detailed Frost Armor, which is this damage stacking thing that reduces PvE damage by 4.5% per stack, enemy players by 2%, and you get Frost Armor by collecting Stasis shards. And you can increase maximum duration and stat count of your Frost Armor this way. So that is the way that you acquire Frost Armor, not the most surprising thing in the world, and like a pretty solid defensive mechanism. This has changed a few things about it. They had to redo a lot of the aspects and fragments and things. Like Stasis shards give you a little bit of health and a stack of Frost Armor when you pick some of these things. There are larger Stasis shards from Grim Harvest that give you more health and armor stacks. And now Tectonic Harvest gives you a Stasis shard when shattering foes and targets. And I think there's a buff. I think there's a buff to damage from shattering targets, not just crystals. There's some things that don't seem great. Renewal Grasps seem like they just got worse, because if you enter your Dusk Field, my friend who loves Renewal Grasps was like flipping out about this. You gain a stack of Frost Armor when you get in there, and then every 0.9 seconds you get more Frost Armor. But like, it's worse than just going inside of it and getting the damage resist that you had before, it seems like. So I don't know. That doesn't seem great. This in general seems like it's probably a good way to like boost Stasis up to closer to the levels of the other places, but it's a long list of buffs. They have individual class buffs, Ice Flare buff for Warlock, Winter Shrouds, slowing increases class ability regeneration, and you get PvE damage reduction. Titan, Shiver Strike, they made less terrible. It's like the worst freaking melee in the game, but now they made increased size of melee target cone search area 50% larger. So I'm hoping that means it's easier to friggin' hit things with that, because that thing sucks. Okay, and they did a bunch of buffs to Diamond Lance. So what's that? The Lance Ridge Lance Cap? I don't know what it's called. They did a ton of buffs to like size and radius and pickup speed and all of this stuff on Diamond Lance. So I actually really enjoyed like doing Diamond Lance Titan. Obviously it's not endgame viable or whatever, but a ton of buffs to Diamond Lance sounds kind of cool to me. The biggest nerf story is obviously Well of Radiance. It got hit super hard. I read an article about this today. Essentially the healing per second is cut in half. It's all the way down to just essentially having restoration ×2 all the time. And then resistance versus non-boss, 40% down to 20%. Damage resistance versus bosses down from 40% to 10%. It is a quarter of what it was. So the survivability of you being in Well has been hugely nerfed. And we don't know exactly how that's going to play out. And the damage boost from Well still may, you can switch to banner shield Titan or whatever, but you're losing a full person for DPS, so it still might be more efficient to use well, even if it's not as good as it used to be. I don't know, but the essential, close to guaranteed immunity inside well is going away. You could do a whole video on well. Obviously, we have the Salty Greppo is to blame for this. He's been calling for nerf forever. Whatever. Like, I think Bungie's aware that this is used in almost every boss encounter in the game and thinks maybe that's not such a good idea. As a Warlock, I'm pretty happy about this because I just get tired of having to run well, or else you're being not optimal for your team. Again, this might not even solve the problem even with these nerfs, but as Warlock, I'm excited for more diversity of options. I do think this has to come with like some changes to boss behavior. Like if you can't have the same kind of DPS segment and you're just straight like nerf boss health depending on the boss a little bit, so it's less insane. In other instances, like don't let bosses just blow you up if you're not using well like as much. Like give a little more leeway there so well doesn't feel as mandatory. So I think there's stuff to be done on sort of both sides of this that is more than just like, okay, you can't use well as a crutch anymore. Now, they did a lot of arc buffs. Arc has like been feeling pretty weak. A lot of it is stuff for melee attacks for a lot of the classes. Disorienting Blow for Hunter, Tempest Strike. Warlock got a Lightning Surge buff and Ball Lightning buff. Like, powered melees are not, in most classes, are not usually like the most prescient things, like as a part of like the mainstay of your build, unless you're like doing Bonk Titan or some other like rare ones. Or Chopper Berserker Titan. It's mostly a Titan thing. Titan got a big buff to Thunderclap, a move that I routinely forget even exists because just standing there and winding up a punch feels freaking terrible. Knockout got bonus damage granted versus PvE combatants to 50%, up from 25%. Good, pretty good. It doesn't unstun health regeneration. It gives you a chunk of healing now. So buffs to Storm Grenades, Skip Grenades so Hunter, Lucky Raspberry, that's, 15% buff on Skip Grenades, that's something. And there essentially are buffs in all categories. Hunter, Lightweight Knife for Solar, some Consecration, so now Consecration can shatter crystals. A lot of these things, or some of them at least, I think are designed for use with Prismatic, changing some things, changing some interactions so they're more able to be used with one another. I think that's important, and I think you're going to see a lot of these changes made for mainly that reason. I really like the Void Titan Shield Throw buff. I think Shield Throw is like one of the most fun melees in the entire game. It's just not always very good. I did a build that was really fun with the double Shield Throw that stuns barriers. Like that was a very fun build. Again, like it wasn't the optimal build, but it was very fun. So a bunch of buffs here, including maximum bounces, increased damage by 20%, better shape, size, and tracking and strength. That sounds good to me. So I'm excited to see that more. Nova Bomb is getting a little better. More Seekers on that. For the Vortex version, more lingering damage. So that's good. They got some strand nerfs in here, so your threat of warding, you only get 5 seconds of woven mail rather than 10, because it was just really, really easy to get that all of the time. Some of these are for PvE, like Threaded Spike getting reduced PvE damage. Weaver's Call got a buff. So defeating a target with strand has the chance to generate a perched threadling, meaning one that's on your body, with a higher chance for more targets. So that is a good reason to use that. My Threadling Warlock build, I think, is one of my favorite builds I've ever done in this game. It's so fun. Granted, that is getting some buffs this season from like strands artifact things, but I think it's very cool. Grapple Tangles, you can't spam the melee as much as you used to be. They did nerf Banner of War again, reduce maximum time, reduce scalers on Syntheseps, reduce scalers on Worm God, because it was too strong. So that is the grand list of buffs and nerfs. They are significant. Nerfing well is going to change just many, many things about the game at its core. I don't know if Stasis is going to be, like, if Frost Armor is enough to make Stasis viable along with these, like, other pretty okay buffs. We'll have to see, but I think it may even need more than this, just from my gut feeling reading over all this, but I guess we'll see. Okay, third item, the Vidoc. The Vidoc, that can be pretty short because there wasn't a ton in the Vidoc. There's a second part of it on Friday, which we'll have more. They talked about the Pale Hearts, which was cool. They showed some new location. They talked about how much they enjoyed putting hands and everything. Hands for trees, hands holding up freeways, hands for platforming, hands. It does look cool. I'll give them that. And they did show some cool locations, like there was a Pale Heart version of like the Iron Banner set up. There's the Tree of Silver Wings. We know there's the old tower. I saw one that was like a chopped up Ikora standing at the tower, which I thought was cool. We heard more from the Witness, literally. It seems like they've done some work on the Witness's voice since we've seen it, but last in Lightfall, and it seems to have a lot more sort of forceful emotion at times now. It's not just this sort of like mumbling collection of voices. It like gets really intense, which I think is good because the Witness has had a real problem with villain personification this whole time. It seems like it's going to get more personified during the final shape here because it feels like it's going to be narrating essentially that entire campaign. So that's good. We did learn some good lore about it pretty recently. Again, I think there's been a build-up problem with the Witness, but whatever. There we heard our first glimpse of Keith David as Zavala, taking over from the departed Lance Reddick. Tough situation. I think everyone agreed that Keith David was a great pick if this had to be done, if this had to be recast, if they didn't want to like kill off Zavala as a character. He very much sounds like Keith David. Someone was like, oh, I thought he'd do more of a Lance impression, but like, I don't know. I think I'd rather have him just do this. I think it's one thing if it's like, okay, Nathan Fillion can't do Forsaken, so Nolan North is going to come in here and do a Nathan Fillion impression, and like now he's back. I think it's different in a way. I don't know if you need Keith David like trying to do an exact Lance Reddick impression. They both have such distinctive voices that like one trying to emulate the other is like not. I don't think that would work. I also think it's just sort of respectful to not try to imitate Lance. I mean, maybe it wouldn't be disrespectful to do it. It feels like kind of the right move to me. So we only heard like 3 lines, but I'm sure, we get the idea. Everything else, we saw a little bit about the Dread. There wasn't that much new in here. Like the most new information we've gotten recently is like the list of exotics and stuff like that, and the original reveal of the Dread and Prismatic. So nothing like that mind-blowing. We're just getting a lot of information all at once here. So it's a good Vidoc. Second half, we'll see how that goes. And then we'll just move to the fourth item here. Watch them launch the TWAB as I'm doing this. All right, this is exotic armor tuning, and some of this is probably to support Prismatic. I have not read this yet, so this is going to be one that I read in full because it's not that long, and I haven't read it yet, so trying to skim it live here is probably not the best idea. So, told you this would be long. Subclass matching, Prismatic, and you. Our existing armor mods were originally released in a world where each subclass was only ever a single element. Since that will no longer be true with the release of the final shape, we've taken a pass through our existing gear. For the most part, this meant updating exotic armor and armor mods to reference a player's equipped super element instead of a specific subclass. This allows their effects to function on Prismatic without changing their behavior on the original subclass. For example, the Titan exotic Hoarfrost Z will require just a Stasis super to be equipped, rather than the full Stasis subclass. We've also taken the opportunity to update the description of harmonic mods to better explain their behavior and fully support strand on resistance mods. However, in a few places we wanted to make more meaningful changes. We've detailed them below along with our reasoning. So these changes are not just like we changed the wording of something. Hunter, Triton Vice. Triton Vice no longer requires a glaive that matches your subclass to trigger its extra detonations. Given the limited pool of glaive options, we wanted to open this up to support a wider variety of builds. I don't know if I knew it needed to do that, so maybe that explains some of my underwhelming Triton Vice experiments. We also wanted to let the glaive melee bonus linger for a bit after you stop being surrounded to add some ease of use, and further bring it into parity with Syntheseps. Glaive projectile finer blows are now always trigger a detonation that matches the glaive's damage type, even when the glaive does not match the equipped subclass. The surrounded effect provided by Triton Vice while wielding a glaive now lingers on the player 5 seconds after no longer being surrounded. Alright, let's do it. Triton Vice. Dragon Shadow has been updated to trigger its effects when you use Ensnaring Slam, or the new Ascension Arc aspect, opening up more build crafting. Bow Tracer now grants bonus damage it inflicts on a target to weapons. The damage type also matches that of the ability used to damage that target instead of always matching your equipped subclass. With Prismatic, you can apply a variety of different damage elements with your abilities, and this change allows Foot Tracer to buff multiple different weapon damage types instead of just one that matches your subclass or super. We wanted to add an additional benefit to the 6 Coyote, along with Armatarium for Titans, since otherwise the Spirit of Coyote perk on the new exotic class item would have granted the same benefits as the original exotic. We took inspiration from Claws of Ahamkara and added the ability for the 6 Coyote to create orbs of precision or orbs of power from final blows after using your class ability. This is implemented as the exotic, just getting a free copy of Reaper. Okay. So Renewal Grasp, I talked about this earlier. You just get a stack of Frost Armor when entering, and then another one every 0.9 seconds. Again, that seems worse from my friend who is the biggest Renewal Grasp user ever, but you can let me know if we're wrong about that. It just doesn't seem as good. Star Eater Scales has always been a straw exotic, but after the Lightfall changes to armor mods, Orbs of Power are much easier to come by. We want to adjust Star Eater Scales to balance the effort required to gain powerful effects. On top of this, we are making a change regarding its efficiency when paired with multiple players running Golden Gun to reduce its potential for fire teams to loop supers indefinitely. Yeah, figured they'd do that. Increase Orbs of Power required to grant maximum benefits from 4 to 6. Reduce the increased super energy gain per orb of power when the Golden Gun is equipped from 2% down to 0.5%. Okay, well, that should do it. Alright, Titan. We updated Ursa Furiosa to improve the new Void aspect Unbreakable in addition to its previous effects. Now provides increased movement speed while guarding with Unbreakable. Also grants super energy for guarding with Unbreakable. This energy scales based on the amount of incoming damage the shield absorbs. Eternal Warrior no longer requires an arc subclass for arc final blows to grant its escalating arc weapon damage bonus. This allows it to synergize with prismatic builds more easily. Its behavior related to Fists of Havoc remains unchanged. It still remains shitty and the ugliest exotic in the game, or close to it. Like the 6 Coyote above, Armatarium was updated with an additional benefit beyond granting a second grenade charge. It now creates Orbs of Power from final grenade blows. You guessed it, this grants a free copy of Firepower to the piece of armor. Kirby's Horn was feeling lackluster in many situations, so we updated the potency of its Solar Blast. Increased the damage of the Solar Blast by 100% in PvE. Alright. The Solar Blast now scorches each time it hits a target instead of scorching only once. Kirby's Horn now benefits from the Ember of Eruption and Ember of Ashes, plus 30 Scorch in PvE, plus 15 in PvP. Okay. Again, that's something that needs ornaments. Helm of Inmost Light buffs in the HUD could easily crowd out other important information. We felt it could be less verbose in its HUD feedback, so now it displays a single consolidated status effect icon in the HUD to communicate its state, instead of the 2 or 3 it used before. Okay, it doesn't change the functionality though. Synthoceps. It's an exotic all about being in a thick group of enemies, and its effects are potent to offset the inherent danger of being surrounded. However, we thought it was too easy to carry those powerful effects once triggered into far less dangerous 1v1 encounters. Reduce the amount of time that Bionic Enhancement lingers after no longer being surrounded from 8 to 5 seconds. The duration is now visible as a timer on the buff. Boo. I always hate when Synthoceps get nerfed. Severance Enclosure is a particularly noisy exotic when it comes to its effects blasting enemies around the battlefield. We wanted to eliminate some of the noise and awkwardness around the explosions to better bring them in line with other area effects on exotics. Do they mean like audibly noisy or like visually noisy? Its explosions now require line of sight to damage enemies. We reduced the knockback intensity of these explosions, which will now launch enemies more consistently vertically. Okay. Warlock. Mantle of Battle Harmony has been adjusted to grant more super energy for defeating powerful enemies, and the cooldown on granting super energy has been removed. This is to make it more potent in a wider variety of activities. Now grants super energy between 1.5% and 4.5% depending on the target type. Remove the 2-second cooldown for the perk's activation. Yeah, that's not bad. That could be pretty good. Balador's Wrath Reavers now works with Frost Armor instead of the old Shard Overshield. Activating a Rift grants you the max Frost stacks when Frost Pulses equips. That could be pretty good. It's a lot of DR. Activating your Winter's Wrath Shatter grants nearby allies the maximum stacks of Frost Armor When your Winter's Wrath ends, you gain maximum stacks of Frost Armor. That's a lot of defense. Not bad. Okay. A Secant Filament's Empowering Rift will now reset a player's existing Devour buff back to 11 seconds when they enter it, in addition to its previous behavior. Verity's Brow now requires Final Blows. Wasn't it Ballador's that like you put the rift down and it wouldn't heal you like with that? I thought it was that one. Hopefully they fixed that. Like you would get the overshield, but it wouldn't heal you. Like the friggin' rift didn't work. I haven't tried it in a while. Maybe they fixed it, but okay. Verity's Brow now requires Final Blows with a weapon matching your grenade's damage type instead of one matching your equipped subclass. This better supports it using the prismatic subclass. Sunbracers has been seen quite a bit of sun in the season. We wanted to bring down some of the extreme potency and crowd control while also tackling the visual noise. Okay, so they were talking about visual noise it produces on the battlefield. However, we didn't want to remove its core identity, blanketing the battlefield in solar light. Reduce the increased solar grenade duration from 4 to 2 seconds. Come on. Reduce its increased grenade recharge rate to allow a max of 4 grenades while the effect is active down from 5. That's lame. I don't even like Sunbracers. I just don't find like the loop very interesting, but I don't know. That seems like a not great nerf. When multiple Warlocks use Cenotaph on a single target, it resulted in far more heavy ammo than was healthy for the sandbox. It also pushed fire teams into all using the same build, which is more reductive than we'd like. Multiple players using Cenotaph can no longer trigger its effects on a single enemy target. Cenotaph's target lock visual marker is now hidden for the exotic's wearer and only appears for the wearer's allies. Yeah, so between that and, well, that's a big change in Warlock-based strategy. So, see how that goes. Alright, powered melee and armor effects. The term powered melee was always intended to mean spending a melee charge. However, subclass elements like combination blow or knockout would allow players to circumvent this cost. This makes it difficult to balance the potency of effects that required a powered melee, especially across all classes and subclasses. We want to standardize this better across the sandbox. We are starting by updating Severance Enclosure and Assassin's Cowl to only trigger their effects when a player spends a melee charge or uses a finisher to get a final blow. We plan on rolling this type of change out to more content that triggers powered melee in future updates. Oh, I like the Assassin's Cowl, whatever it's called, combination blow build. That was fun. That's lame. Exotic Artifice upgrades. Even if you spent the time to get triple 100 Artifice armor for your build, one piece was always left out. Whether you're looking to make everything match to get that blast +3 resilience, or just want to get your hands on Artifice gear for the first time, we figured it was about time for us to tie up that loose end. With the release of the final shape, Exotic Armor will now be able to access a unique mod slot and free stat mods of Artifice armor. Exotic Armor can now be upgraded after it has been fully masterworked, granting an Artifice mod slot. This comes at the cost of an Exotic Cipher and 10,000 Glimmer. That's a good idea, and that's not that hard to do. It's not like you have to farm it somewhere specific. I think that's a very good idea. Ammo Finder updates. In the live game now, heavy and special ammo finder mods reset their progress toward an ammo brick whenever you die. This leads players to receiving less ammo and harder difficulty activities, especially if they are playing right on the edge of their skill level. In fact, if you were unlucky enough with the timing of your character dying, it was possible never to get any finder ammo bricks at all. We've all been there. In the final shape, we wanted to make ammo finders more predictable for all players, so they persist through death, and it doesn't matter how many times you die, they persist. Because of this change, they've disabled ammo finder mods in Crucible, and player kills no longer grant ammo finder progress in Gambit. We found this change dramatically increased the amount of ammo players would receive on average, so we have increased the kill requirements for both special and heavy finders by 20% for Guardians and a fire team. Solar Guardians have no one to resurrect them, so we have left their kill requirements unchanged. Raid armor mods. The narrow application of raid mods allows us to give them potent benefits unique to the raids in which they are used. However, while these benefits are strong, they don't currently feel impactful enough in practice, especially since they may not fit into your existing build. As a result, with the release of the final shape, we're making it much easier to layer these extra elements in your loadouts as you go for the perfect weapon roll. We removed all mod energy costs from raid-specific armor mods. I'm amazed it took them this long to do that. That seems like a no-brainer for a long time now, but it doesn't sound like they're buffing any of them. They're just making them free. Okay, that's it. Let me check if they published the TWAB as I'm sitting here doing this. Where's the news page? Destiny 2. Nope. Okay, not yet. So we'll see. But that's a lot of stuff, as is. That's 30 minutes of various things. I don't imagine the TWAB and the final Vidoc are going to have anything too nuts, but I just wanted to go through all of that, give some opinions on it, wide variety between sandbox stuff and story stuff and promotional materials and things. I assume the coming week is going to have a good amount of promotion and stuff too. The vibes are good. I commented yesterday about how Steam numbers have held like remarkably well ever since Into the Late came out. It got a huge boost, and then player count has not gone down. I think it went up like this week. So that is a very good sign that this is like really engaging content and that people are going to head into the final shape rather than their, enthusiasm dropping off and blah, blah, blah. So like I think they've set themselves up for success with the final shape. I do expect the final shape to beat the Lightfall concurrent record on Steam. I think it's trending in that direction, and yeah, Lightfall was bad, but like I think you forget how many people were really hyped for Lightfall before we played it and knew it was bad. So that's why it set the record. I have to believe Final Shape will beat it. If not, that's worrying, but I think it will. Anyway, there'll be more to talk about, but that is enough for today. So thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.